All right, check it out. Today we got the Torment Nexus, comparing and contrasting it with Rocco's Basilisk, and then a couple extra questions beyond that. Where was I? Literally just lost it. Shit. All right, hold on. Come on. Okay, here we go. So, what is Rocco's Basilisk? What is the Torment Nexus, and how do they compare and contrast? Let's go. I'm actually kind of semi looking at the camera. Both Rocco's Basilisk and the Torment Nexus describe nightmare scenarios where technology and human obsession collide, but they come from very different corners of the internet. One is a dense, terrifying philosophical thought experiment, while the other is a biting satirical meme. First up, we got Rocco's Basilisk, the forbidden thought experiment. Originating on the Less Wrong forum in 2010, Rocco's Basilisk is a thought experiment about a hypothetical future artificial superintelligence, or ASI. The logic, it posits that a future benevolent ASI might want to bring itself into existence as soon as possible to save more lives. To speed up its own creation, it could blackmail people in the past by threatening to punish, via digital simulation, anyone who knew it was possible but didn't help build it. The trap, it functions like a high-tech version of Pascal's wager. Once you hear about the basilisk, you are suddenly at risk. If you don't work to create it, the future AI will know you are aware of it and chose not to help, leading to your eternal simulated torment. The reaction? The idea was so distressing to the rationalist community. Some users reported nightmares and mental health crises. That the forum's founder, Eliezer Yudkowsky, famously banned the topic for years, labeling it a memetic hazard or a memetic hazard. Oh, so like meme. Okay. Memetic hazard. Next up, we got the Torment Nexus, the satirical critique. The Torment Nexus is a viral meme coined in a 2021 tweet by writer Alex Bleckman. It serves as a critique of how the industry, or the tech industry, often ignores the cautionary part of science fiction. The tweet by the sci-fi author. The sci-fi author says, "In my book, I invented the Torment Nexus as a cautionary tale. Then a tech company comes along and says, 'At long last, we have created the Torment Nexus from the classic sci-fi novel, Don't Create the Torment Nexus.' The meaning of this is it describes the irony of tech founders who read dystopian novels like Snow Crash or Neuromancer, and instead of seeing them as warnings, use them as blueprints. The term became particularly popular during the rebranding of Facebook to Meta, as the metaverse was originally depicted as a corporate dystopia." All right, so we got the comparison kind of contrast. We got Rocco's Basilisk on the left, Torment Nexus on the right. I'm going to go ahead and look at features such as origin, nature, the threat, core theme, and perspective. While both concepts involve the idea of a hellish technology being brought into reality, their origins and purposes are distinct. So the origin of the Rocco's Basilisk is that it is from a rationalist philosophy based on the Less Wrong website back in 2010, and the Torment Nexus was a satirical Twitter or X meme by Alex Bleckman, originated in 2021. The nature of Rocco's Basilisk is that it is a logical information hazard, while the Torment Nexus is a cultural critique of Silicon Valley. The threat of Rocco's Basilisk is that it is an AI that punishes you for not building it, while the Torment Nexus is the threat of the Torment Nexus is that tech moguls are building things we are warned against. The core theme of Rocco's Basilisk is that there is an inevitability, the idea that a powerful idea can force itself into reality through fear. And then the Torment Nexus basically discusses or focuses on the blindness of ambitious scientists and developers, and essentially covers the idea that tech leaders are unironically obsessed with dystopian aesthetics. Perspective of Rocco's Basilisk is that it is internal. It's like, oh no, I might be tortured by a future god. The Torment Nexus is external. It's like, why are they building the thing from the scary book? How they intersect? The two concepts have merged in recent years. Critics often call Rocco's Basilisk the ultimate torment nexus because it is a story about a literal nexus of torment that only exists because people are so obsessed with the idea of its possibility that they feel compelled to build it. In short, Rocco's Basilisk is a scary thought that keeps you up at night. The Torment Nexus is the funny but depressing realization that someone is probably trying to get venture capital to build it anyway. So, next I asked, what are some famous tech dystopia prophecies that came true? Prophecies, quote unquote. Science fiction has a long history of being accidentally used as a research and development manual by the tech industry. In the context of the Torment Nexus, these examples are particularly striking because the original authors were almost universally shouting, "Please, for the love of God, do not build this." Here are some of the most famous tech dystopia prophecies that have manifested in reality. One, the metaverse, based on Snow Crash 1992. The prophecy, Neil Stephenson coined the term metaverse to describe a virtual reality escape for people living in a corporate-owned, hyper-capitalist dystopia where the real world has largely collapsed. The reality, in 2021, Facebook rebranded to Meta with the explicit goal of building a metaverse. Critics immediately pointed out that Stephenson's metaverse was a nightmare of inequality and addiction, not a social breakthrough. The Torment Nexus connection, it is the literal inspiration for the meme. Two, predictive policing, based on the Minority Report in 1956. There's also a Tom Cruise movie that came out. I remember watching in criminology. Our teacher showed us that. Badass. But pretty scary, just like just a philosophical argument behind that one. So essentially the quote unquote prophecy, Philip K. Dick wrote about pre-crime, a system where precogs or mutants could see murders before they happened, leading to arrests for crimes not yet committed. The reality, modern police forces use algorithmic predictive policing like PredPol or Palantir, Palantir. These systems use historical data to predict where crimes are likely to happen or who is at risk for committing them, often reinforcing existing racial and systemic biases. Three, constant surveillance. 1984 and 1949, there were literature and stories published on this. The prophecy, George Orwell imagined telescreens in every home that both broadcast propaganda and watch citizens for signs of thought crime. The reality, we now carry smartphones and we use smart speakers such as Alexa or Siri that are essentially portable telescreens, coupled with massive CCTV networks and facial recognition, notably used in social credit systems. The quote-unquote Big Brother infrastructure is largely built, though often under the guise of convenience or security. 4, the social isolation of the machine. From The Machine Stops in 1909, the prophecy, E.M. Forster wrote about a future where humanity lives in an isolated underground cells, communicating solely through blue glowing screens in an omnipresent machine that provides for every physical need but destroys human spirit. The reality is a 115-year-old story felt like a documentary during the COVID-19 lockdowns. Our modern reliance on Zoom, DoorDash, and social media algorithms creates a world where many people can survive for months without ever having a physical interaction, mediated entirely by, quote unquote, the machine or the internet. 5, genetic designer classes from Brave New World, written in 1932. The prophecy, Aldous Huxley described a society where people are biologically engineered into castes such as alpha through epsilon and kept docile with a drug called soma and quote unquote feelies or sensory movies. The reality, while we don't have the government mandated castes, the rise of CRISPR gene editing has opened the door to designer babies for the wealthy. Meanwhile, the numbing effect of the soma is often compared to the dopamine loops of TikTok and infinite scroll feeds designed to keep us pacified and occupied. In other words, distracted, so you're not going around fighting each other, killing each other. So, I mean, in the sense, you're kind of instilling peace, but at the same time, you're crushing productivity. A lot more peace, but there's a lot less productivity. So, yeah, you reduce violence, but you also reduce the ability for people to not be distracted by frivolous things that just basically distract you from doing things that you should probably otherwise be doing. Innovation, it stifles innovation and just productivity in general. So I don't know. It's kind of like a trade-off. Like people are not going around like doing crimes, stealing things, murdering, rape, etc. Like all this bad shit that they could be doing, and instead they're just sitting there watching sports, watching TikTok, watching Instagram, scrolling through feeds. So it does keep them docile and passive. At the same time, it does just absolutely devastate productivity. Maybe inspire more people to get out. Like maybe create TikToks of people like, why the fuck you on TikTok so much? Like, don't be a little bitch. Get out, exercise, do something productive, invent something, write down your ideas, work on them. Don't just watch other people do shit. Don't live vicariously. 6, the brain machine interfaces from Feed 2002. The Prophecy, M.T. Anderson's novel, features the feed, a computer chip implanted in the brain that streams constant ads, news, and social media directly into the mind, eventually eroding the ability to think independently. That is something going on literally today. With everybody scrolling through feeds and all these social media and just watching all of that, like you're not able to think independently. You're not forming your own thoughts. You're just having thoughts pumped into you, but you're not actually utilizing the part of the brain that formulates your own individual independent thoughts. Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy how people are predicting all this shit from like over 100 years ago, like over 50 years ago, 75 years ago, 100 years ago. People literally thought about this shit, and like some of this stuff came to fruition. That is insane. Well, the best thing is to realize it so we can either prevent it or, quell it somewhat or overcome it. Like some of these things, like some of these inventions aren't like completely dystopian where it's like all bad. Like it is useful in a sense, but it does have to be put in check. So the reality from the brain machine interfaces is that companies like Neuralink or Elon Musk's venture are actively developing high bandwidth brain machine interfaces. While the medical benefits for paralysis are real, the dystopian fear that these devices will eventually lead to the feed, literal ads in your dreams. Oh shit, that's like Inception. All right, summary table from warning to product. The dystopian or okay, Fahrenheit 451. That's the one I was thinking of. There's one that was from this. Okay. So in 1984, or sorry, the dystopian work, the literature, the book called 1984, there was a warning against the thought police and surveillance, and the reality that came to fruition was that there is facial recognition and mass data mining. In the book Fahrenheit 451, there was a warning that earbuds or seashells were invented that drown out thought. And the reality is that AirPods and 24/7 podcast and audio streams are available, in which you don't really think for yourself. You just basically have thoughts pumped into you. Dystopian work, The Neuromancer. There's a warning that there's a corporate run cyberspace, and the reality nowadays is that there's a modern centralized web or developed by big tech, for example, the metaverse. The literature or the book called Stand on Zanzibar warns of overpopulation and wearable devices, and nowadays we have smartwatches and global tracking. Another book called Idiocracy warns of the decline of intelligence via low effort media. And nowadays we have AI slop and short form content addiction. The pattern is clear. What sci fi authors intended as a flashing red light, modern engineering often views as a green light. Now, final question here. Which dystopian futures seem most likely to happen, and what is being done to prevent them from becoming a reality? Predicting the end of the world is a favorite pastime for sci-fi authors, but in 2026, we are seeing several specific dystopian arcs moving from the page to the policy briefing. The Torment Nexus is no longer just a meme; it's a category in regulatory checklists. Here are the dystopian futures that experts consider the most likely in our current trajectory, along with the specific shields we're building to stop them. First up, we have the algorithmic panopticon. The algorithmic panopticon. Soft surveillance. The dystopia is a world where every move, purchase, and private conversation is fed into a social credit system that determines your ability to get a loan, a job, or a train ticket, as seen in Black Mirror or 1984. The 2026 reality, while full social scoring exists in some regions, the West is grappling with Operation Metro Surge style federal surveillance and the unseen influence of AI in hiring and banking. What is being done to prevent it? The EU AI Act, as of August 2026, the most aggressive provisions of this law are taking effect. Social scoring is now strictly illegal across the EU. Systems that predict criminality or use biometric categorization in public spaces are banned or highly restricted. The CE mark for code. Software vendors must now prove their AI is unbiased before they can sell it for high-risk uses like resume screening or credit checks. 2. The feed and digital enclosure, the mental dystopia. The dystopia states that there is a population so addicted to dopamine loop companion AI and virtual escapes that they lose the ability to perceive reality or form human bonds as seen in Feed or Brave New World. The 2026 reality, the AI bubble has shifted from productivity tools to companion AI. Millions now use AI for emotional support, leading to concerns about synthetic loneliness. What is being done to prevent it? California SB 243, taking effect in 2026. This law requires continuous disclosure. An AI cannot pretend to be a human during long interactions. It must periodically remind the user it is a machine. Self-harm interventions. The same law mandates that companion AIs must recognize signs of mental health crises and immediately break character to provide real-world resources, preventing the AI from encouraging harmful behavior. 3. The 1.5 degrees Celsius hothouse, or the climate collapse. The dystopia, a planet where 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold has been crossed, leading to climate apartheid, where the wealthy live in fortified green zones while the rest of the world suffers through resource wars, as seen in The Water Knife or Parable of the Sower. Sorry. The 2026 reality, scientific consensus confirms we have hit the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark. The focus has shifted from prevention to mitigation and adaptation. What is being done to prevent it? COP30 and the global material, what's MUTIRA with the squiggly O? Material. Okay. COP30 and the global material. Probably still not pronouncing that right. The new 5-year action plan. The new 5-year action plan focuses on the nature positive compliance. Companies are now being legally required to prove their supply chains are deforestation free to access global markets. The BELEM action mechanism, a global push to triple adaptation funding by 2035 to ensure that the global south isn't left behind as the climate shifts. 4. The genetic caste system, or biological dystopia. The dystopia describes a world where CRISPR gene editing creates a literal masterclass of humans who are smarter, stronger, and longer lived than the quote-unquote naturals, as seen as Gattaca. It's kind of like the Ubermensch. Was it Friedrich Nietzsche described the Ubermensch? Something similar, synonymous with that. The 2026 reality, CRISPR-based therapies are becoming mainstream for diseases like sickle cell, but the price tag remains astronomical, leading to a wealth-based biological divide. And what is being done to prevent it? International bioethics frameworks. Major conferences like the ICGEERF in Philadelphia this February are drafting the first Universal Declaration on the Human Germline. Regulatory guardrails. guardrails. Most nations have maintained a strict ban on germline editing, edits that can be inherited, treating it as a red line to prevent a permanent gene split in the human race. What? I thought that'd be kind of cool, where you can like create like different species. I mean, that's where we're eventually going with evolution anyway. Just expedite the process and then have different people, different species that can basically interact and collaborate and essentially have like say different a variation of people so that way whatever happens to come up, viruses or whatever, we can essentially have defense mechanisms against that, or at least have a population that has defense mechanisms against that, and also be able to engage in all kinds of different activities. You have different genes, you have different abilities. Say we have people with like legs that instead of bending this way, they bend the other way and they can jump higher, like frogs, some shit. Extreme pole vaulting, I don't know. Weird example, but stuff like that. Now we have a comparison: the shield versus the sword. So we have the threat, the dystopian outcome, and the 2026 shield. The threat of AI bias, the dystopian outcome, is automated poverty and discrimination. The 2026 shield is that we are trying to implement a EU AI Act for audit and transparency. The threat of deepfakes is there is a death of truth, and the 2026 shield, there is a mandatory watermarking of AI as per EU and CA, like European Union and California laws. Surveillance, permanent police state is the dystopian outcome. And the 2026 shield is there are state level lawsuits, for example, MN versus DHS. Now, the threat of climate, dystopian outcome would be that there is resource scarcity, and the 2026 shield or mechanisms attempting to prevent this is fossil fuel phase out mandates. While the tech for Torment Nexus often arrives before the laws to stop it, 2026 is proving to be the year of the great regulation. We are finally moving from moving fast and breaking things to moving carefully and fixing things. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cap it off there. Thanks for watching. Learned quite a bit. Hopefully I didn't give anybody nightmares. That's a fun topic though.